So we now got Swift in the browser, but what about cross-platform Swift apps? It's currently still an Apple-dominated field. But first, who am I? My name is Mia. I'm an active contributor to SwiftCrossUI, and I also maintain multiple other open source projects, like for example the Amethyst Browser and Authenticator. What is SwiftCrossUI? It's a declarative, reactive, easy-to-use UI framework. It wraps native imperative frameworks on every platform, so you don't have the problem like with Flutter, where everywhere it looks the same unless you do it yourself. It attempts to capture the essence of SwiftUI, but run everywhere. Our supported platforms currently are Apple platforms except watchOS, where we use UIKit or AppKit. On Windows it's WinUI 3. On Linux it's GTK4, but also GTK3 is supported if you are running older Linux. And also soon Android is going to be supported. It's only needing support by our build tool to bundle to .apk bundles. Now let's port some SwiftUI code. It's a pretty simple recorder app with some state going on there and basic views, and persisted everything. Let's copy this into a SwiftCrossUI project. It obviously doesn't work right away. We still need to change the imports. And then we get the same thing rendered in SwiftCrossUI, but also to more platforms for free. This is obviously a bit cherry-picked, as we don't have 100% API coverage to SwiftUI, and also some minor naming difference in some cases. But basically, if you know SwiftUI, you can also build with SwiftCrossUI. And as I already mentioned, we have our own build tool. That's SwiftBundler. You can use it for building and distributing cross-platform Swift apps, not only SwiftCrossUI, but also SwiftUI. It supports macOS, Linux, Windows, iOS, tvOS, visionOS, and soon Android. And targets .app.rpm, .appimage, and .msi, and again soon .apk bundles. And you can also easily use it in your CI. Now, how do you create a SwiftCrossUI project? We have a template repository similar to what Xcode has, so you can just append you can just SwiftBundler create the name of a project and the template you want to use, in this case SwiftCrossUI, which gives you this nice Hello World application, and by running it with SwiftBundler run. If you are targeting a lot of the not macOS Apple platforms, I recommend to build some command line functions, so you don't have to specify the identifier or simulator name every time. It just makes it a bit easier to work with until we may eventually also have a graphical user interface for it. Nice, but what about previews in SwiftUI? Previews are pretty cool to design directly in code and see what you are building pretty fast while you are building it. We don't have previews yet, but the next best thing being hot reloading. For that you just append the SwiftBundler run command by --hot, and it creates a session listening for changes in the file system, with Xcode or other editors potentially caching stuff before writing it. You may need to save manually, but then it just updates live without the need to rerun the application. What's our What does the more Swift roadmap looking like? As I mentioned, Android support is coming soon. We have a lot of work to do on keyboard navigation and shortcuts on our desktop platforms. Improvements to feature parity across the platforms. For example, Windows doesn't support Sheets yet, because for some reason working with application windows on Windows is pretty hard. And we also want to provide cross-platform audio and graphics frameworks similar to what you would get with Core Graphics, AV Foundation and Metal on Apple platforms. And of course, more stuff that you would need to build your app on other platforms. What else do we need though? Of course, we often need to persist data, and that's what Amethyst Vein is for. It's something I was building in the last weeks. It supports SwiftUI and SwiftCrossUI. It's declarative and built for dynamic frameworks like SwiftUI or SwiftCrossUI, but also works without them. It's pretty easy to include in your app with like the query property wrapper, and you also get the model context just through the environment, similar to SwiftData. But you also have a bit more control in some places. For example, you can control when you want a field to be loaded by declaring it as field or lazy field. And it wraps SQLite.swift instead of wrapping core data on Apple platforms. So it's also consistent everywhere, and you get the same experience if you want to look into the database to debug things. You can also do versioning and migrations, similar to what you know from SwiftData. As I said, it's a bit more expressive in some places because SwiftData can be a bit of a black box. So in my opinion, it's better to explicitly say what you want to have in some places. And of course, it's also open source, so if something weird is happening, you can just look into it and find out what the code is intended to do. Now I need to still add relationships, and later I also want to support end-to-end encrypted synchronization through a self-hostable backend, because it's a bit weird that synchronization is still a bit of a luxury in 2026. And also a cross-platform keychain wrapper and synchronization of that as well. Now a few example applications of SwiftCrossUI. This is a comic viewer app Steven built, or the music player app StackOtter built that's also visible on the SwiftCrossUI website, that also runs on Linux and Windows.
Wow.
If you want to know more, you can ask me in the break. But first, I also need to ask for more contributors and money, because as you can imagine, supporting that many platforms and building a UI framework from scratch takes quite a lot of time. StackOtter is working on it full-time. I am working a similar amount, but not also on the UI framework, but also the other things you would need to build to have a nice experience building applications. So to continue going forward with that, sponsors and more contributors are needed. And everything, as I mentioned, is open source. You can see the links down there, or just scan the QR code where you get to the sponsor page and can see the source of the recorder example I showed, or all the other projects are linked there as well. Thank you for having me, and that will be it until you hit me with your architectural questions, hopefully in the break.
Thank you.